Okay, thank you, Amos. So, good afternoon, participants. Uh, I'm happy to meet you once again. Um, as a speaker for this SCTP program. Uh, so this time I'm coming with a different topic. Actually, this topic is combination of three major field. Actually, we are going to use the finite element method in the composite materials area. But for use, in addition to this finite element method, we are also going to use experimental model analysis also. That means three different fields we are going to discuss, participants. One is composite material, another one is mechanical vibration, and third one is the finite element method. So in case of material testing, already you studied many things, many methods are available to test the characteristics of any material, right? So if you take a bulk material, it may be steel or aluminum, like metals or non-metals. So we have so many standard methods available for finding the tensile strength, compression strength, and some elastic constants, Poisson ratio, right? For finding all these material characteristics, we have standard methods, right? Like in the by using the universal testing machine, you can do tensile test, compression test, and also you have a flexural test, shear stress. All these tests are they are conducting to find the various properties of materials. But all these methods are called a destructive type method. We have to prepare a specimen. The specimen will be break after conducting the test. So these are all coming under destructive type. So here in this lecture, I am going to propose a method to determine these material property, that is elastic constants of a anisotropic material, because the composite materials are not isotropic. That also we are going to discuss. So how to evaluate the effective elastic constants of anisotropic material um, in the non-destructive testing method. That is what the aim of this lecture. So I try to cover all these three major fields slowly. And if you have any doubt and clarification, you can interrupt me at any time. So the main idea of this lecture is we are going to find out the elastic constants which are going to describe the composite materials. For finding this elastic material, we are going to use both the experimental model analysis as well as the theoretical model analysis using finite element method. Okay, so these are the my plan of lecture. First, we have an introduction. In the introduction, we will see what are the applications of composite material, and then we have to see how the composite materials are characterized. Then, for our small case study, we fabricated glass and carbon composite laminates. For this glass and carbon composite laminates only, we are trying to evaluate the elastic constant. So for that, we fabricated in our lab, we fabricated this glass and carbon composite laminates. And for this fabricated laminates, first we conducted the experimental model analysis, and then we did the finite element modeling and analysis for this composite beams. After conducting this finite element analysis and experimental model analysis, we are going to compare the results of these two. By comparing that, by doing simple regression analysis, we are trying to establish the elastic constants of these composite beams. And after getting these elastic constants, we can apply these constants for any further analysis. For that also I have did one simple analysis, model analysis for composite beams at a higher frequency range. Okay, these are the presentation plan. First, let us get into the composite material. We all know that the composite fiber reinforced polymer composite materials are broadly classified into three categories based on the matrix material used. Actually, in the composite material, there is one continuous media in which there are discontinuous media, which is reinforced inside the continuous media. That is why one is called a matrix, another one is called a reinforcement. So depends upon the matrix, we have classification as metal matrix composite, polymer matrix composite, and a ceramic matrix composite. So this particular case study is regarding the polymer matrix composite. The same idea can be utilized for any type of composite also. So just we are applying the idea, right? So for non-destructive testing method for the polymer composite material. So the fiber reinforced polymer composites are finding a lot of applications in automotive structure, aircraft, marine structure, and also in the sports and the medical field also. They are using the FRP composite material. The main advantage of this FRP composite material is it will give high strength to weight ratio and also stiffness to weight ratio compared to the conventional material. Suppose if you see the same strength to weight ratio for the steel material or any other metal, the composite material will give very high strength to weight ratio. That is the one of the important advantage. That is why these materials are most popular in the aircraft application and the automobile applications. But when we use this type of FRP composite material, the most important thing is we have to know how this material, FRP material, will behave during the service condition. So in case of automobile, the material going to be used in the lands, surface, earth surfaces. In case of aircraft, it is going to be fly in the atmosphere. And if you use this FRP material in the marine, so this material will be subjected to corrosion, water corrosion. So depends upon the service condition, we should know how this material will behave. And also during the service condition, it will be subjected to some static and dynamic load condition also. So to understand this material behavior, we should know the different material properties, right? So for that only we are doing the characterization. It is called a material characterization. Normally the material characterization, in the sense we are trying to find out the various physical property, mechanical property, and chemical properties. So we are not going to see any physical chemical property. Here we are focusing only the mechanical properties of this FRP composite material. So when you say the mechanical property, for any isotropic material, what are the mechanical property we are using? Mostly the elasticity, modulus of elasticity, shear modulus, and the Poisson ratio. By using these three constants, we are able to do any type of analysis, and we can easily explain all the problems for isotropic conventional material. But in case of composite material, since this composite material is like a multi-phase material, it involves both matrix as well as the reinforcement. So it behaves like a anisotropic material. So what is anisotropic means? If you consider the three coordinate axes x, y, z, in case of isotropic material, we are assuming that the material behavior is constant or uniform throughout these three direction, x, y, z direction. But in case of anisotropic, it is not like that. So we cannot say that the material will behave in the same manner in this all the x, y, z direction. So that is called anisotropic. So to define this anisotropic nature, we need a more number of elastic constants. So that is the real challenge for doing any characterization of any composite material. So in this case, they are using the conventional testing method also to find the elastic constant, but for anisotropic material we have to do so many testing method. Even then, the testing method, what are the results we are getting for one FRP composite for one batch of material will not hold good for others, right? So that is why this type of non-destructive type method is very suitable. We can easily arrive this elastic constant by this type of method. Now, this non-destructive testing method, we are going to combinedly use the free vibration analysis, experimental as well as the finite element method. So before going to that experimental part, we should know the difference between isotropic and anisotropic material, and also what are the elastic constants used for definition of material. So first we will take up this isotropic material, which we have studied in our strength of material. So we know that Linear relationship by Hooke's law, the stress and the strain is stress is proportional to the strain. So now we are considering a three-dimensional stress element. So for a three-dimensional stress element, you can consider your three axes, x-axis and y-axis and z-axis like this. So in this, for isotropic material, along x direction, along y direction and z direction, we are assuming that the material behave uniformly, right? So even then, when you measure the strain, right? So when you measure the strain for this three-dimensional element, so it is called a triaxial state of stress or three-dimensional state of stress. So when you measure the strain in 3 dimension, we have to consider the Poisson effect also. So what is Poisson effect? So suppose if when you apply a force along this x direction, because of this x direction force, there will be elongation along this applied force direction, x direction. At the same time, since there is elongation in one direction, the material will have some contraction in the other two direction, that is in the y direction and the z direction, there will be some contraction. So this is because of this Poisson effect. So this will also contribute some strain along this x direction. So we have to properly subtract the strain due to the other two direction, right? That is the equation here. So you have to understand carefully. That is epsilon x. Epsilon x is normal strain along the x direction, which is according to the, if you have only one load acting along the x direction, it is simply sigma x by E. Suppose in case of 3 dimension, if you have a load acting on the y direction as well as the z direction, the y direction and z direction load will also contribute the strain along this x direction. So we are subtracting that effect. This minus sign, you have to see that one. So this is the resultant strain or net strain along this x direction. So by using the Hooke's law, we are deriving this equation. Similarly, we can establish the strain along normal strain along the y direction and the normal strain along the z direction also. So these are the 3 equations which are used to find out the normal strain. Based on this normal strain, we are going to get the expression for the sigma x, sigma y and the sigma z, right? So now similarly, if you see the shear stress, so based on the Hooke's law, shear stress is again proportional to shear strain. So using that, we can get the important relationship for modulus of elasticity, that is shear modulus of elasticity or modulus of rigidity. So this is simply shear stress by shear strain. Now in this case, the 3 equation for 3 dimensional, there are 3 shear planes possible. So xy, yz and zx. So for this we can write 3 shear strain equation, and for any 3-dimensional stress element, there are 3 normal stresses and 3 shear stresses. So the normal stresses will act perpendicular to the plane. This is considered as the stress plane, and shear stress will act tangential to the plane. So now, based on that, when you write this equation, this is for normal strain and this is for shear strain, and when you rewrite this, rearranging this equation, finally we'll get sigma x expression, sigma y expression, and sigma z. So for normal stress, and these are the for the shear stress expression. So when you write all these 6 stresses, so these are the explanation for the direction of the normal stresses as well as the shear stresses. So now in this case, when you write this in the matrix form, stress strain relationship, when you write it in the matrix form, you will get the relationship like this. So here, this is the 6 types of stresses for 3-dimensional element, and here we have the strain. Now here I am showing this stress strain relationship for the plane stress plane strain condition, just for our understanding purpose. So this is called stress strain relationship. In between we have a constitutive matrix or elasticity matrix. So here you see, for isotropic material, what are the constants used for this constitutive matrices? One is E, Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity, and the Poisson ratio. Even the shear modulus also replaced by shear modulus also replaced by this Young's modulus E. So for isotropic material, if you want to find the 6 types of stresses, 3 normal stress and 3 shear stress, we need only 2 elastic constant. One is Young's modulus, another one is Poisson's ratio. So for this type of isotropic material, by conducting a simple tension test in the UPM machine, we are able to get these 2 values. You can get first you can get this stress strain plot. From that stress strain plot, you can easily measure the Young's modulus, and this Poisson ratio can also be measured by measuring the elongation of the rod, right? That is also you can find it out. So, but same thing in case of anisotropic material, what will be the stress strain relationship we have to see. So if you take many materials, so it will not behave isotropic nature, but we are assuming that all the materials are behaving isotropically. But in case of multi-phase material and the composite material, so these materials will behave in anisotropic manner. So in that case, what will happen in that stress strain relationship? So here we have the 6 stresses. So for composite material, they don't use XYZ symbol. They use 1, 2, 3, 4. That is this is called material direction. Instead of XYZ, they will use 1, 2, 3. Here they will use 1 and 2 and 3, or sometimes this will be 2, this will be 3, depends upon the notations. So that is why they are using sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3. These are shear stresses. So now when you say isotropic material, we cannot say these constants are same, right? We cannot evaluate this constitutive matrix by simply by using one elasticity modulus and Poisson ratio, because this material will behave different manner in different direction. So we need a totally 36 constant, 36 6 by 6 matrix. So 36 elastic constant is required for defining anisotropic material. So then only we can get for if you apply a anisotropic material for a particular application, right? So if you want to measure the stress developed in anisotropic material, we need totally 36 number of elastic constant. So determining the 36 elastic constant, practically it is very difficult. So what they are doing is, they are using some assumption. This 36 constants is simplified by assuming some planes of symmetry. That means in this 36 constant, they will consider this major diagonal. These are the major diagonal elements. So these are independent constant, and they will assume that the this matrix as a symmetric matrix. That is, this is called upper diagonal elements. This is called lower diagonal elements. So we can say that C12 is equal to CP1. So by assuming like that, so we can reduce the number of elastic constant from 36 to 21. This is one stage. So this is considered as general anisotropic linear elastic solid. So by using this symmetricity, they are reducing 36 into 21. And one more assumption also made for a composite material. That is, composite materials mostly made of laminated composites. So we'll fabricate the composite using different number of layers. So in that case, this laminated composite made can be considered as a orthotropic in nature. So it has a orthotropic symmetry. That means there will be 3 planes of symmetry. For 1 plane, 2 plane, and 3 plane. So by assuming the 3 planes of symmetry, that 21 constant is reduced to 9 number of constant, 9 independent constant. So these are the constant, 9 constant, the major diagonal, and these 3 constant. Only they will assume the remaining constant. They are eliminating by assuming the planes of symmetry. So if you want to solve any composite problem, say for example, for research purpose, we want to do some simple analysis for the any study. It may be a structural analysis or modal analysis or thermal analysis. So in that case, we try to use the elastic constant. So in case of laminated composite, minimum we need 9 elastic constants. So in that case, how to evaluate this 9 elastic constant? That is what we are going to see now. These 9 elastic constants are defined like this. So based on this material direction, this is the material direction notation. So this is a diagram showing the laminated composite, right? This is a direction, material direction 1. This is material direction 2, and this is called the thickness direction 1, 2, 3. So actually this is like a bidirectional laminate. The fibers are in both the direction 1 and 2. So these are called bidirectional lamina. So here 1 is called the warp direction, 2 is called the weft direction, 3 is called the thickness direction. So based on that, we have E11, E22, E33, 3 elastic modulus. Similarly, 3 shear modulus, G12, G13, G23. So 3 planes, and a Poisson ratio nu12, nu13, nu23. So if you want to do analysis of laminated composite, so we should know the values of these 9 constant. And remember, these materials are man-made materials. So if you use different fibers, different matrices, the material will have different property, right? So for each fabricated laminate, we have to evaluate this property. That is the challenging things here. So for each material or each batch of material fabricated, we have to do this testing. So in that way, we can save more time by using this non-destructive testing. So now for doing that, first we fabricated the composite laminates. Actually, here I'll explain this fabrication method briefly. We have chosen 2 fibers, actually glass and carbon fiber. One is glass is a low modulus fiber to make the difference, and the carbon fibers have very high modulus compared to glass. So we have chosen both glass as well as carbon. Here, for ease of fabrication, we used the woven fabric form. So we have not used any unidirectional laminar form. So we used the fabric will be like this. So this is one material direction one, that is warp direction. This is material direction two, weft direction. So then we can add a number of layers to form the thickness. So that is the third direction. So why we have chosen the woven fabric form is it is ease of handling, and we can easily get the integrity and conformability along three direction, right? So that is the one of the reason we can easily achieve the balanced properties within the plane as well as the along the thickness direction. Both can be easily achieved. That is the reason. So now these are the material we have used. One is the e-glass fabric. This is called plain woven form. There are different fabric, woven fabric. So plain form, twill form, like that. So we have chosen the simple plain form of e-glass and carbon fiber T300 type. And here the aerial density we have selected. Aerial density 600 gram per square meter. So actually, for this type of fabric, they will use the term called aerial density, the weight per area. So that is called aerial density. And the matrix we use the epoxy, thermoset resin, and the proper hardener also used. So using this, we prepared the laminate using hand layup technique. So actually 4 layer we have formed for glass laminate and 4 layer for carbon laminate, and we arranged the layers, and we placed the stack within the compression molding machine for proper curing. So the curing is done for one day, 24 hours. We applied nominal pressure, and we maintained for study purpose, we maintained the volume fraction, that is fiber volume fraction of the laminate 0.5. So what is the meaning of this one? Fiber volume fraction means this matrix as well as fiber is used for making one composite laminate. So volume percent, that is fiber is 50% and the matrix is 50%. That is called a fiber volume fraction is 0.5. This is the, we have to understand that. So for study purpose, we maintained the fiber volume fraction as 0.5, and these are the specification we are going to use for this study. 4-layered glass laminate, 4-layered carbon laminate, and aerial density is 600. And these are the notation, that is 4-layer we stacked together and compressed by using the compression molding machine, and we got this 2 laminates. So actually we fabricated this laminate 250 by 250 mm. So after fabrication, we cut this laminate for testing, vibration testing, as well as the tensile and flexural test for comparison purpose. Now, for any composite material, polymer composite material, when you fabricate, so we have to confirm that volume fiber, that is fiber volume fraction, by conducting this burnout test. So we conducted the burnout test as per the ASTM procedure. So now and then we confirmed using this equation, we can easily find out the volume fraction. Actually, the specimens were placed in a electric furnace for 6 hours at a temperature 400 degree Celsius. Then the matrix will be evaporated. So we'll get only the fiber. That remaining fiber will be weighed in the electronic balance like this. So we can easily substitute that value. What is the fiber mass and the initial mass, like that. So we can easily verify the volume fraction, and we ensure that the variation of fiber volume fraction is within the 2%. So this is about the fabrication part. Now coming to this experimental model analysis. Now after fabricating this composite specimen, we fabricated these two types of composite specimen just for comparison purpose. One is made of glass fiber. Both laminates are 4-layer laminate. One is made of glass fiber, another one is carbon fiber. So now these two laminates should be tested for vibration study. So why we are going for the important use of the modal analysis is we can easily find out the dynamic behavior of a structure, right? So if a structure is subjected to a dynamic load condition, so you have to understand what is the natural frequency of the particular structure, right, to avoid the resonance condition. So that is why this experimental modal analysis is done for most of the structure. By using this modal analysis, we can easily find out what is the natural frequencies and the mode shapes. So for any structure, we can get many infinite number of natural frequencies and mode shapes are possible. But in the experimental modal analysis, because of the limitations of sensors and the other software limitation, we can find it out. Minimum 10 to 20 natural frequencies, mode shapes, we can find it out. So now coming to this one, for doing the modal analysis, there are three types of methods followed. One is by using the hammer, impact hammer. Another one is by using the shaker, that is electrodynamic shaker or mechanical shakers are available. Another one is operational modal analysis. So in case of hammer, a simple hammer is used to give excitation to the source. Similarly, in case of shaker, the shaker are used to excite the specimen. So, but the compared to these three methods, the hammer testing is very economic one and easy to use. So we have followed this hammer test. So either we can do the modal testing either by using a hammer, just by hitting this structure, we can get the mode shapes and the natural frequency by using the proper sensor arrangement, or otherwise we have to give excitation through electrodynamic shaker. So now here we followed the impact hammer testing method because of easy and economic. So here for impact hammer method, if you want to get the mode shape, how the test will be conducted means, here you see this one, this is the specimen. So the specimen will be fixed at one end, free at the other end, like a cantilever beam. So then one end, free end, they will fix the accelerometer, which is going to pick up the response of the structure, and the excitation will be given in the nearer to the fixed end. This is the hammer they are using. So here, when you give excitation, the system will have some vibration, right? So that vibration response is measured by using this accelerometer. So this is a very simple method only. We have to give some excitation to the structure, and we are studying the dynamic behavior of the structure by using this accelerometer. So why they are using accelerometer in the sense, accelerometer can be used for any low frequency range as well as high frequency range. That is why the accelerometers become very popular. So this is the method. So if you want to get the mode shape, various mode shapes like this, we have to use the roving hammer method or roving accelerometer method. So roving hammer method is very easy. So we can fix the accelerometer at one end, and we can give excitation at the different points. Then these signals can be fed into the data analyzer to get the required mode shapes. These are the experimental modal analysis method. So in this experimental modal analysis, what will be the output? Right, output is called a frequency response function. So what is the frequency response function? We have to understand. Actually, the given input is an excitation, right? So a force is given. So and what is the response? We are measuring the amplitude of vibration by using the accelerometer. Okay, so now what is frequency response function means? It is the ratio between the response to the excitation. Response to the excitation, it is called a frequency response function. So the frequency response function will be the output for any experimental model analysis. So here H is called the frequency response function. So X will be measured in terms of G. G is nothing but acceleration due to gravity, and F is measured in terms of Newton. What is the force given, right? So the unit for any frequency response function is G by M, and here it is measured in terms of frequency domain. So normally vibration response are measured in terms of frequency domain, not the time domain. So because time domain signal will not give much information, so these are the time domain signal. So frequency domains are most preferred. And what is the one more advantage of this frequency response function is this is independent of the excitation. Either you can use a impact hammer, or you can use a shaker, or any other type of excitation. So that particular structure we have unique frequency response function. That is the important advantage. So these are the experimental setup we use in our lab to find the frequency response function of the glass and the carbon beam. So the glass and carbon laminate, which are fabricated in the square size, then from that plate we cut into a beam size 250 mm by 25 mm width. So we used that impulse excitation technique. I think now you can see this in this photograph. You can understand this glass beam is fixed at one end. This is a fixed end, and this is the free end. In the free end, accelerometer is fixed here to measure the response, and near the fixed end, hammer is used to give excitation. So both these are fed into the data logger. So here these signals are converted into frequency domain, and here this FFT analyzer will be there in the software. So that fast Fourier transform, that FFT analyzer will convert the time domain signal into frequency domain. Finally, we will get the frequency response function. This is one of the major area. Just briefly, I am explaining here. So by using the experimental model analysis, we can do so many research. Now, what is the outcome of this one? So we used this as the specimen size for this experimental model analysis. So we have different density, mass density, because the fibers having different modulus. So now these are uh, the output of the model analysis. So we have the so many information in this graph actually, but the final output is this one. This is the frequency response function. Here you can I think I cannot see this one. This is the unit Gn by Newton, and here the frequency. So the mostly the response function will be like this in the curved shape. So each peak will give us the natural frequency of the system. That means for each frequency we can get one mode shape. So that mode shape we can get it the different procedure by using a roaming hammer method like that. So here from the experimental model analysis, we can easily measure the natural frequency of the particular structure. So that natural frequency for glass beam and the carbon beam studied separately, and we listed the natural frequency for first 10 modes. Experimentally we evaluated, but experimental evaluation is very difficult. You have to carefully do this one. But for this study, we evaluated the 10 mode, first 10 modes, frequency mode, and this model frequency value, if you see the model frequency values for glass beam and carbon beam are always on the higher side, because the stiffness of the carbon is more than the glass beam. that to confirm that, we conducted a flexural test also. Based on the flexural test, we obtained the results like this. The flexural strength of the beam, glass beam, is only 378 megapascal, but where the flexural strength of carbon beam is a very high, 573 megapascal. Because of this reason only, we are getting very high frequency values for the carbon beam. That is also verified by experiment. Now coming to the model analysis, same model analysis using finite element method. So now, in case of experimental model method, we fabricated the specimen, and we cut the specimen to the standard size, and then we did the experimental model analysis. Based on the experimental model analysis, we got the this 10 mode frequency. Now, why we obtained 10 mode frequency means, because for orthotropic material, we have to evaluate 9 elastic constant, right? E11, E1, E22, E33, and then 3 shear modulus, 3 Poisson ratio, right? So we need a 9 constant. So from literature, we found that if you want to find 9 constant in the experimental model analysis, at least we have to do 9 mode. So the number of modes preferred should be greater than the number of elastic constant. That is the reason we preferred 10 mode. Now, the same way we have to do the model analysis in the finite element analysis. Now, we have to do theoretically. So now for this, we have to first find out the elastic constants of these laminates, woven fabric, glass, and the carbon laminates. We have to find out. So for that, what is the available material property? So the available property is for carbon fiber form, carbon fiber and glass fiber. The properties are available in the data book. So, and we used the epoxy matrix also. So for the fiber form, the properties are available. See here also you can see the elastic modulus for the glass fiber is 74, and the elastic modulus for the carbon T300 carbon fiber is nearly 3 times this one. So 230 gigapascal, and the shear modulus also available, and the Poisson's ratio. So these are the available data with us. Based on this data, we are going to develop the elastic constant theoretically. So here in the composite textbook by P.K. Malik, is a very famous author. So he has given the elastic constant, how to evaluate the elastic constant for a composite laminate, which are unidirectional composite. That is, unidirectional means the fiber will be only one direction. In the upper transverse direction or perpendicular direction, no fiber will be there. So this is called the unidirectional lamina. For this type of unidirectional lamina, there is a set of equations available to find the elastic constant E1 in the sense the modulus along this direction, fiber direction. This is called the longitudinal direction. This is 2 is called the transverse direction, and this is thickness direction. So E1 is nothing but modulus along fiber. E2 is modulus perpendicular to the fiber direction, like that. So here you see EF is nothing but the elastic modulus of the fiber. VF is nothing but volume fraction of fiber. Similarly, EM is elastic modulus of the matrix. VF1 minus VF is nothing but volume fraction of the matrix actually. So like that, by substituting the fiber and the matrix modulus and the Poisson ratio, right? So we can easily evaluate the elastic constants of unidirectional lamina. This is the equation used. Similarly, for shear modulus 1, 2 and 2, 3 plane, we can easily substitute the matrix modulus and the fiber modulus. We will get these values. So these are the values obtained by using this equation. We used a simple Excel sheet to calculate this one. So we calculated the unidirectional lamina of carbon fiber lamina and the glass fiber lamina. This is the first stage. But we have used woven fabric lamina actually for our fabrication. So to find the elastic constant of woven fabric lamina, we have used one more reference. From this reference, the laminate mechanics for balanced woven fabric. From this reference, we found out these equations. So this equation will relate the elastic constant of unidirectional lamina and woven fabric lamina. So elastic constant for woven fabric lamina can be found out by using the elastic constants of unidirectional lamina. I think you will understand better. First, we are getting the that is elastic constants of unidirectional lamina based on the mechanical properties of constituent material, fiber, and matrix. From the unidirectional lamina, we are getting the elastic constants of the woven fabric lamina. So by using this equation, set of equation, we are able to derive these 9 elastic constants for this woven fabric lamina. So E1, E2 will be same because we are using same fiber. E1, E2 will be equal, and E3 along the thickness direction, E3 it will be different, and G12, G13, G23. So for this G13 and G23 will be same, and Poisson ratio mu12 and nu13, nu23 will be same because that 1,3 plane and 2,3 plane are similar. So that is why we'll get all the 9 constants for woven fabric lamina. Now using these 9 constants, we are going to make a finite element model. The finite element model, here we use the ANSYS software. So in the ANSYS, there are so many elements available for modeling the composite material. So here we choose the shell 99 layered element. So there are many elements available nowadays. So we have selected shell 99, which is a 8 node element with 6 degrees of freedom. Now we model similar to the experimentation. So 220 mm length of beam and 225 mm width, because out of 250 mm in the experimentation, 30 mm will go for the fixed end. So that is why the remaining 220 mm alone considered here. So the 4-layer alignment can be done by using this layered element, and actual specimen thickness, because already we fabricated the 4-layered laminate, that thickness is given into this FEM model. So this is the layered alignment we can make using this layered element. So how many layers? Up to 250 layers we can add in this by using these elements, right? So there are so many facilities available. So because we used only 4 layer in our laminate, here we are showing 4 layers. So all the 4 layers, either you can use glass or carbon 4-layer laminate like that. And this elastic constant, what we have calculated using the rule of mixture and the equation, right? That elastic constant is given as input as the material property, and the actual density of material, because already we fabricated that, the density is given as the input, or otherwise we can use the theoretical density value also. And for modeling the woven fabric lamina, we have to use this fiber orientation as 0 degree, right? Based on that, we evaluated the model frequency by finite element method. This is very easy. So by doing the simple model analysis, which was explained by Raja Karthikeyan sir yesterday. So that same procedure, if you follow, we can easily get this model frequency values. So here also we extracted 10 mode frequency, 10 mode frequency for comparison purpose. So here also we are getting carbon, the frequency value for carbon laminate higher side than the glass, because theoretically also we know that the modulus of carbon fiber is very high than the glass fiber. This is the reason. Now we got 10 model frequency experimentally and 10 model frequency theoretically. Now the idea is we are going to compare this model frequency and we are going to match this theoretical frequency to the experimental frequency. That is done by using a regression analysis. So how to establish the elastic constant? Now we have 10 set of transverse model frequency, experimental value as well as the theoretical value. So here we have experimental model frequency and the theoretical model frequency. These two are given as a input for the simple regression analysis. We did it using Microsoft Excel. So in that case, if you do the regression analysis, the plot will be like this. So you can compare the theoretical frequency and the experimental model frequency, and using this degree of deviation will come like this. This R square value actually. This deviation is used to adjust the 9 elastic constant which are used in ANSYS actually. Sorry, actually the 9 elastic constant what we derived. These are the constant we derived by using the Oman fabric lambda, that is the equation. So now that degree of deviation which is obtained by simple regression analysis is multiplied with this constant. So there are so many iteration is done, more than 100 iteration. So after for each iteration we did model analysis for this the same steps are followed, and we got the set of elastic constant like this. Again we did this regression analysis, then we'll get the degree of deviation. Then like that this regression analysis is done till the deviation is very minimum, right? So by doing this iteration process we are able to achieve the line elastic constants, right? So these are the 9 elastic constants of the glass laminate, 4-layer glass laminate, that is a carbon laminate, right? So these elastic constant may be used for further analysis. This is what we have concluded actually. These effective elastic constant are used for further analysis. So here I think we published one paper also based on this one. We can refer that paper. This one, after achieving this one, again I'll summarize this procedure actually. We fabricated the 4-layered glass laminate and 4-layered carbon laminate using a hand layup method. And for this laminate, we conducted experimental model analysis. From the experimental model analysis, we got actual model frequency. That is the actual model frequency of the laminate. And using finite element method, we conducted the model analysis by using theoretically evaluated elastic constant. Now we did the regression analysis to modify the elastic constant which is fed as input to the ANSYS, right? So every time we changed that elastic constant till the frequency obtained by the finite element method. This frequency what we are showing here, right? So this frequency should match with the experimentally obtained frequency. Till that we have conducted the regression analysis. Once the frequencies are matching up to 5%, if you get the plus or minus 5% error, then we stopped the iteration. Then at that particular stage we can conclude that those elastic constants can be used for further analysis. That is why we used the term effective elastic constant. And we did one more study also using this effective elastic constant. Actually, once this effective elastic constant is arrived, we can do lot of study, but we extended only one study. So we fabricated only 4-layered laminate, but once we got this effective elastic constant, we can do the analysis for any number of layers. It may be a 8-layer, maybe a 12 layer, 16 layer, any number of layers we can do using finite element method, very easy only. So we need not to fabricate the laminate every time. And also hybridization can also be possible, because we have glass laminate, glass layer laminate constant, and the carbon layer constant also we have. So using that we can do analysis of hybrid beams also. So for that we consider the two types of hybrid beam. One is called hybrid 1, another one is called hybrid 2. In the hybrid 1, the layers are arranged like this. Glass fiber or glass fiber layers are kept outside, and the carbon layers are inside. So these are the arrangement: glass fiber outside and two carbon layers are inner. And the other one just reverse. For H2 layer arrangement, two carbon layers kept outside, two glass layer kept inside. So just for study purpose, we have chosen these two types of hybrid layer arrangement. And by choosing this one, we can easily get the balanced modulus property. So we have selected a symmetric layering arrangement. Now in finite element method, we can easily get this hybrid arrangement just by changing the material. Two represent carbon, one represent glass, like that. So any number of layers also we can add. So 3 times, that is a unified composite beam sense, or 4 layer. So 3 times means 12 layers we can do. So modal analysis was carried out in the finite element method. Same fixed free boundary condition, that is like a cantilever beam. And one more advantage is, by using the finite element method, we can derive the different types of modes. There are 3 types of mode shapes possible. One is transverse mode, another one is twisting mode, another one is shear mode. All the 3 types of modes can be extracted from this finite element method also. And we did that also. So we extracted the mode shapes up to 10,000 hertz frequency. So 1T represent unit plate, that is 4 layer. This is a 12 layer, like that. So we increase the thickness. So now the comparison, if you see the, when you increase the thickness of the laminate, the frequency value also increased based on the thickness. But here one interesting study what we have obtained is, for transverse mode and twisting mode, the variation in frequency is occurring for each mode. But in case of shear mode, we don't find any change in frequency. So what is the reason behind this one? For that we conducted a shear, interlaminar shear strength study. So based on that we understood that the shear strength of this laminated the glass and the fiber, glass fiber and carbon fiber laminate are same. So the shear strength is not changing. Because of this reason, we found that the shear mode frequency are not changing for any that is unit thickness, or otherwise the higher thickness laminate. The frequency values are coming same. These are the conclusion we arrived. The graphical representation for H1 and H2. So H2, the frequency of H2 beam will be always higher than the H1 beam, because the reason is, we found that the H2 beam has very high flexural strength than this H1. So because by this study we understood that by placing the glass fiber inside and the carbon fiber outside, right, outer layer, we can achieve more dynamic stiffness. That is also one of our conclusion actually. And these are the various mode shape obtained through ANSYS. So this is if you carefully look at this diagram, you can understand. So this is the transverse mode, this is twisting mode, and this is the shear mode. You have to carefully see and extract from the ANSYS. And the important observation is the H2 arrangement, layering arrangement. We are getting high frequency value because it has high structural modulus, and no frequency variation for the shear mode. That is also verified through shear strength value. So the final conclusion, actually, see here we tried one non-destructive evaluation of elastic constants of the FRP composite material. So that is done by using combined experimental method as well as the finite element method. So the reference is taken as the experimental modal analysis value, but by doing the finite element method, modal analysis using finite element method, we are able to derive these elastic constants of the FRP material. So these elastic constant may be used for further analysis. Only thing is we have to verify this effective elastic constant through some experiment that can be added for further study. So in this study, that effective elastic constant can be verified by conducting the UTM test. So that can be added. That is the only thing we have to add here. The reference. Thank you, participants. So if you have any clarification regarding this, you can ask questions. Actually, the three broad area we combined composite material and modal analysis and the finite element method. Any questions? Amos sir? Yes. So I am done with the presentation. Yes. Thank you, Amos. Participants, tomorrow afternoon 2:30 p.m. we have an online test also. You have to write this online test for getting the certificate. So I think I asked all the participants to present for the valedictory function. That is 2:30 session tomorrow is important.